A few buzzwords around Cake is obviously it's open source, it's object orientated. I class it as like an enterprise level framework, and also it's built around rapid web development. So I think those are all core aspects to the way it's come about. It was started in 2005, so it's actually for a PHP framework. It's also got a lot of legs behind it as well, and years, whereas some of them are emerging and based on what Zend and Cake have been doing. Another thing is, I keep talking about it as a port, but it's critical. I actually found this out researching this workshop, is it's not a port. So it's modelled on Rails, but it's not a direct port of Rails. So because there's so many similarities, it's easy to think they were done in unison, but they just basically took the concepts. It's MVC, and everybody understands MVC, I hope. We've had 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. With varying 1.1, I tried to learn it and I just thought it was a backward step from where I was. 1.2 was better, pretty good, we use it still on certain projects, but 1.3 has got loads of stuff we haven't even touched on yet, and the way that that's sort of phasing out certain things and bringing others. One of the worst things about Cake that definitely puts people off is PHP 4 sucks balls, and the fact that they haven't dropped it yet is just absolutely aim. So that totally, when you talk to people about Cake PHP, they go, no, Cake PHP. But once
that's actually what they say.
Yeah, they do.
I've heard exactly the same thing.
Yeah. But one of the things that was a saving grace remarkably was I built a site for a company in Australia, developed it, delivered it, put it on their server launch day, and they only had a PHP 4 server. So I just changed back my publics to vars, and it all worked. So there is madness in the usage of it. Cake DC, everybody should know about. Cake DC is the company who are behind Cake, so they have employees and everything. They're just like a development house like anyone else, and they get a lot of stuff through there. And in October 2009, Garrett Woodworth, is that his name? Yeah, and Nate Abel were the lead developer and the project manager on Cake, and they had a big bust up, and they left Cake. And the reason they left Cake was because they didn't like the roadmap. So basically, with Cake 3 coming out, which is in development, I think Cake 2 is in development. There's Cake 2 and there's Cake 3. And Cake 3 is the completely PHP 5.00 version. But because 1.3 was the next thing they were delivering back in 2009, what Garrett and Nate decided was that this was just arse and that they'd work on only a PHP 5.3 framework. So that's what Lithium is. It's not just 5, but it uses completely the sort of it's namespaces, isn't it, in 5.3? So it's a namespace. You know, it's all those things that they wanted to get into Cake. But the interesting thing is, it uses the base of Cake. So they've took it, they've gutted it, but they're the guys who originally conceived it. So Lithium's a really powerful thing to look at. It's well worth having a note and stuff. And the only thing is, because it's so new in framework terms, it's been used on loads of projects, but they're more like internal, like a low, it's a low volume of projects that there aren't that many examples of. But the people who are using it, and Zeno at Fire Creek, he raves about it. He started using it as well, so it looks really good. But because it's not gone stable and stuff like that. But anyway, side note, I worked on a project with Garrett at Wapple, so that was pretty cool. And then now, two names to look out for: Mark Story and Matt Curry. Matt Curry's got pseudocoder.com, and that's a really good Cake PHP blog. They talk about hacks and tips and stuff to improve it, and there's an ebook on there that everybody should read that's totally free, called something like 200 super awesome tips. And that talks about mem caching and core and stuff like that. And then the future in my eyes is like, in terms of a Cake world, is like it's either going to be how good's Cake 3 or look at Lithium and stuff like that. But from a framework point of view in this company, there's things like Rails and there's loads of different angles to go in. So yeah, that was one slide. Okay. The basics of Cake, everyone should know this, but is everyone solid on the convention over configuration principle? Does everyone understand what that means? Yeah. There are people here. Looks like I'm just giving it to an empty room. Yeah. And then also, these are just like the core concepts of Cake. So everyone must know what a model is, a controller, helper, a view and stuff like that. Right. In terms of Cake, there's like the other thing I don't really know how much we all understand is like OO. You know, just going back to like how PHP uses OO and different understandings of OO and stuff in you know, programming in general. So a talk someone might want to consider giving is probably just back to basics. So we've all got the underlying basics sorted, but inheritance is pretty easy to comprehend, especially if you're developing a cake and you don't understand it that much. Everything extends off app model or app controller. Well, everything actually extends off object. So object is the core thing in Cake that anything can, you know, if you really wanted to do a hackaroony-roo, you could put something into object and it become available across the entire system. PHP 4 sucks, I put that in again. PHP 5, yeah. Even though it's PHP 4 framework, I think everybody should be using PHP 5 techniques in it. I mean, my note about I had to publish on a PHP 4 server, that was about 18 months ago or whatever, so I don't see, especially the calibre of clients we're working on now, but you know, everybody should be using like variable scope, so public, private and protected. There's also things like type hinting that I don't know how much people have used. Does everybody know what type hinting is? What it is into a class and a method, when you're passing a variable, you can precede it with the type of object, and that way, so for instance, it's really good is if you're dealing in like, say you had a class, say, I mean, where would you do it? In a model, so say you had a behaviour, and you want it, a behaviour can talk to any number of models. Well, what you could do is like, you can force PHP at its raw level to throw an error if you throw it a class that's not of that type. So the way you do it is if you had a function called like, I don't know, absorb. Say this was in a behaviour, right? Normally you'd put in here like model. Or with type hinting you could put like document, just not with $, and then space model, and it'll throw an error if it's not of that type of model.